In folk poetry, Serbian epic poetry, Marko Mrnjavčević is the most popular hero of Serbian epic poetry, in which he is called Kraljević Marko, with the word Kraljević meaning prince or king's son. This informal title was attached to King Vukašin's sons in contemporary sources as a surname, Marko Kraljević, and was adopted by the Serbian oral tradition as part of Marko's name. Poems about Kraljević Marko do not follow a storyline. What binds them into a poetic cycle is the hero himself, with his adventures illuminating his character and personality. The epic Marko had a 300-year lifespan. 14th to 16th century heroes appearing as his companions include Miloš Obilić, Relja Krilatica, Vuk the Fiery Dragon, and Sibinjanin Janko, and his nephew Banović Sekula. Very few historical facts about Marko can be found in the poems, but they reflect his connection with the disintegration of the Serbian Empire and his vassalage to the Ottomans. They were composed by anonymous Serbian poets during the Ottoman occupation of their land. According to American slavicist George Ropal Noyes, they combine tragic pathos with almost a ribald comedy in a fashion worthy of an Elizabethan playwright. Serbian epic poetry agrees that King Vukašin was Marko's father. His mother in the poems was Yevrosima, sister of Vojvode Momčilo, the lord of the priorly Tor fortress on Mount Turmitor in Old Herzegovina. Momčilo is described as a man of immense size and strength with magical attributes, a winged horse and a saber with eyes. Vukašin murdered him with the help of the voivode's young wife, Vidosava, despite Yevrosima's self-sacrificing attempt to save her brother. Instead of marrying Vidosava, the original plan, Vukašin killed the treacherous woman. He took Yevrosima from Pirlitor to his capital city Skadar and married her according to the advice of the dying Momčilo. She bore him two sons, Marko and Andriaš, and the poem recounting these events says that Marko took after his uncle Momčilo. This epic character corresponds historically with Bulgarian brigand and mercenary Momčil, who was in the service of Serbian Tsar Dušan. He later became a despot and died in the 1345 Battle of Peritheorion. According to another account, Marko and Andreas were mothered by a Vila Slavic mountain nymph, married by Vukašin after he caught her near a lake, and removed her wings so she could not escape. As Marko matured, he became headstrong. Vukašin once said that he had no control over his son, went wherever he wanted, drank, and brawled. Marko grew up into a large, strong man, with a terrifying appearance, which was also somewhat comical. He wore a wolfskin cap pulled low over his dark eyes. His black mustache was the size of a 6-month-old lamb, and his cloak was a shaggy wolf belt. A Damascus saber swung at his waist, and a spear was slung across his back. Marco's pernach weighed 66 okas, 85 kilograms, 187 pounds, and hung on the left side of his saddle, balanced by a well-filled wineskin on the saddle's right side. His grip was strong enough to squeeze drops of water from a piece of dry cornel wood. Marco defeated a succession of champions against overwhelming odds. The hero's inseparable companion was his powerful talking piebald horse Sharac. Marco always gave him an equal share of his wine. The horse could leap 3 spear lengths high and 4 spear lengths forward, enabling Marco to capture the dangerous, elusive Villa Raviola. She became his blood sister, promising to help him in dire straits. When Raviola helped him kill the monstrous, three-hearted Musa Kesagia, who almost defeated him, Marco grieved him because he had slain a better man than himself. Marko is portrayed as a protector of the weak and helpless, a fighter against Turkish bullies and injustice in general. He was an idealized keeper of patriarchal and natural norms. In a Turkish military camp, he beheaded a Turk who dishonorably killed his father. He abolished the marriage tax by killing the tyrant who imposed it on the people of Kosovo. He saved the Sultan's daughter from an unwanted marriage after she entreated him, as her blood brother. To help her, he rescued 3 Serbian voivodes, his blood brothers, from a dungeon and helped animals in distress. Marko was a rescuer and benefactor of people, and a promoter of life. Prince Marko is remembered like a fair day in the year. Characteristic of Marko was his reverence and love for his father, Yevrosima. He often sought her advice, following it even when it contradicted his own desires. She lived with Marco at his mansion in Prilep, his lodestar guiding him away from evil and toward good on the path of moral improvement and Christian virtues. Marco's honesty and moral courage are noteworthy in the poem in which he was the only person who knew the will of the late Tsar Dushan regarding his heir. Mark refused to lie in favor of the pretenders, his father and uncles. He said truthfully that Dusan appointed his son Uroš heir to the Serbian throne. This almost cost him his life, since Vukašin tried to kill him. Marko is represented as a loyal vassal of the Ottoman Sultan, fighting to protect the potentate and his empire from outlaws. When summoned by the Sultan, he participated in Turkish military campaigns. Even in this relationship, however, Marco's personality and sense of dignity were apparent. He occasionally made the Sultan uneasy, and meetings between them usually ended like this. The Sultan went backwards and Marco followed after, until he drove him even to the wall. Right so the Sultan put hand in pocket and drew forth 100 ducats, and gave them to Kralevich Marko. Go, Marko, quoth he, drink thy fill of wine. Marko's fealty was combined with the notion that a servant was greater than his lord. As Serbian poets turned the tables on their conquerors, this dual aspect of Marko may explain his heroic status. For the Serbs, he was the proud symbol expressive of the unbroken spirit that lived on in spite of disaster and defeat, according to translator of Serbian epic poems David Halliburton Lowe. In battle, Marko used not only his strength and prowess but cunning and trickery. Despite his extraordinary qualities, he was not depicted as a superhero or a god, but as a mortal man. There were opponents who surpassed him in courage and in strength. He was occasionally capricious, short-tempered, or cruel, but his predominant traits were honesty, loyalty, and fundamental goodness. With his comic appearance and behavior, and his remarks at his opponent's expense, Marko is the most humorous character in Serbian epic poetry. When a Moor struck him with a mace, Marko said laughingly, O valiant black Moor, are you jesting or smiting in earnest? Nevrosima once advised her son to cease his bloody adventures and plough the fields instead. He obeyed in a grimly humorous way, plowing the Sultan's highway instead of the fields. Group of Turkish janissaries with 3 packs of gold shouted at him to stop plowing the highway. He warned them to keep off the furrows, but quickly wearied of arguing. Dijamar he swung plow and oxen on high, and slew therewith the Turkish janissaries. Then he took the 3 chargers of gold, and brought them to his mother. Behold, quoth he, what I have plowed for 3 this day. Marko, aged 300, rode the 160-year-old chariots by the seashore towards Mount Urvina when a villa told him that he was going to die. Marco then leaned over a well and saw no reflection of his face on the water. Hydromancy confirmed the villa's words. He killed Shara so the Turks would not use him for menial labor, and gave his beloved companion an elaborate burial. Marco broke his sword and spear, throwing his mace far out to sea before lying down to die. His body was found 7 days later by Abbot Vaso and his deacon Isaiah. Vaso took Marco to Mount Athos and buried him at the Hilandar monastery in an unmarked grave. Epic poetry of Bulgaria and North Macedonia. Kralj Marko has been one of the most popular characters in Bulgarian, more generally in Eastern South Slavic folklore for centuries. These epic tales of Marko seem to originate from the present day North Macedonia, therefore also being an important part of the ethnic heritage of Macedonians. According to local legend, Marko's mother was Evrosia, sister of the Bulgarian voivoda Momchil, who ruled territory in the Rhodop Mountains. At Marko's birthtree Nerecnici, Fairy sorcerers appeared, predicting that he would be a hero and replace his father, King Wukashi. When the king heard this, he threw his son into the river in a basket to get rid of him. A Samodiva named Vila found Marko and bought him up, becoming his foster mother. Because Marko drank the Samodiva's milk, he acquired supernatural powers and became a Bulgarian freedom fighter against the Turks. He was a winged horse named Sharkolia. Dappled, and a stepsister, the Samodeva Gyura. Bulgarian legends incorporate fragments of pagan mythology and beliefs, although the Marko epic was created as late as the 14th to 18th centuries. Among Bulgarian epic songs, songs about Kralj Marko are common and pivotal. Bulgarian folklorists who collected stories about Marko included educator Trajko Kitanchev in the western region of Western Macedonia, and Marko Tsepenkov of Prilep throughout the region. In legend, South Slavic legends about Kraljevic Marko or Kralj Marko are primarily based on myths much older than the historical Marko Mrnjavčević. He differs in legend from the folk poems. In some areas, he was imagined as a giant who walks stepping on hilltops, his head touching the clouds. He was said to have helped God shape the earth, and created the river gorge in Demir Kapya, Iron Gate, with a stroke of his saber. This drained the sea, covering the regions of Bitola, Mariovo, and Tikvish, and Macedonia, making them habitable. After the earth was shaped, Marco arrogantly showed off his strength. God took it away by leaving a bag as heavy as the earth on a road. When Marco tried to lift it, he lost his strength and became an ordinary man. Legend also has it that Marco acquired his strength after he was suckled by a villa. King Bukashin threw him into a river because he did not resemble him. But the boy was saved by a cowherd who adopted him, and a villa suckled him. In other accounts, Marco was a shepherd or cowherd who found the villa's children lost in a mountain and shaded them against the sun or gave them water. As a reward, the villa suckled him 3 times, and he could lift and throw a large boulder. An Istrian version has Marco making a shade for 2 snakes instead of the children. In a Bulgarian version, each of the three draughts of the milk he suckled from the villa's breast became a snake. Marco was associated with large solitary boulders and indentations in rocks. The boulders were said to be thrown by him from a hill, and the indentations were his footprints or the hoofprints of his horse. He was also connected with geographic features such as hills, glens, cliffs, caves, rivers, brooks, and groves, which he created or at which he did something memorable. They were often named after him, and there are many toponyms, from Istria in the west to Bulgaria in the east, derived from his name. In Bulgarian and Macedonian stories, Marko had an equally strong sister who competed with him in throwing boulders. In some legends, Marko's wonder horse was a gift from a villa. A Serbian story says that he was looking for a horse who could bear him. To test the steed, he would grab him by the tail and sling him over his shoulder. Seeing a deceased piebald foal owned by some carters, Marco grabbed him by the tail but could not remove him. He bought and cured the foal, naming him Sharat. He became an enormously powerful horse, and Marco's inseparable companion. Macedonian legend has it that Marco, following Avila's advice, captured a sick horse on a mountain and cured him. Crusted patches on the horse's skin grew white hairs, and he became a piebald. According to folk tradition, Marco never died. He lives on in a cave, in a moss covered den, or in an unknown land. A Serbian legend recounts that Marko once fought a battle in which so many men were killed that the soldiers and their horses swam in blood. He lifted his hands towards heaven and said, "O God, what am I going to do now?" God took pity on Marko, transporting him and Sharat to a cave, where Marko stuck his saber into a rock and fell asleep. There is moss in the cave. Sharat eats it bit by bit, while the saber slowly emerges from the rock. When it falls on the ground and Sharat finishes the moss, Marko will awaken and re-enter the world. Some allegedly saw him after descending into a deep pit, where he lived in a large house in front of which Sharat was seen. Others saw him in a faraway land, living in a cave. According to Macedonian tradition, Marko drank eagle's water, which made him immortal. He is with Elijah in heaven. In modern culture, during the 19th century, Marko was the subject of several dramatizations. In 1831, the Hungarian drama Prince Marko, possibly written by István Balog, was performed in Buda, and in 1838, the Hungarian drama Prince Marko, Great Serbian Hero by Celestin Pergo, was staged in Arad. In 1848, Jovan Stelia Popovic wrote the tragedy The Dream of Prince Marko, which the legend of Sleeping Marko is its central motive. Petar Preradovic wrote the drama Kraljevic Marko, which glorifies Southern Slav strength. In 1863, Francesco da Liongaro presented his Italian drama, The Resurrection of Prince Marko, in her collection of short stories from 1978, Nouvelle Orientale. Marguerite Yourcenar imagined an alternative, inexplicable end to Marko's life, La fin de Marko Kraljevic. Of all Serbian epic or historical figures, Marko is considered to have given the most inspiration to visual artists. A monograph on the subject lists 87 authors. His oldest known depictions are 14th century frescoes from Marko's monastery and prelap. An 18th century drawing of Marko is found in the Chinese Gospels, a medieval parchment manuscript belonging to a Serbian Orthodox church in Chinica in eastern Bosnia. The drawing is simple, unique in depicting Marko as a saint, and reminiscent of statuary relief. Vuk Karadžić wrote that during his late 18th century childhood he saw a painting of Marko carrying an ox on his back. 19th century lithographs of Marko were made by Anastas Jovanović, Ferdo Kikerec, and others. Artists who painted Marko during that century include Mina Karadžić, Novak Radonić, and Jura Jakšić. 20th century artists include Nadezhda Petrović, Mirko Rački, Uroš Predić, and Paja Jovanović. A sculpture of Marko on Šarac by Ivan Meštrović was reproduced on a Yugoslavian banknote and stamp. Modern illustrators with Marko as their subject include Alexander Key, Alexander Klas, Zuko Džumur, Vasa Pomorišac, and Bane Kerac. Prince Marko and his saber was also inspiration for current Serbian national anthem Bože Pravde. The song was taken from a theater piece Markova Sablja, very popular among Serbs in 1872. Motifs in multiple works are Marko and Raviola, Marko and his mother, Marko and Sharac, Marko shooting an arrow, Marko plowing the roads, the fight between Marko and Musa, and Marko's death. Also, several artists have tried to produce a realistic portrait of Marko based on his frescoes. In 1924, Prelab Brewery introduced the light beer Kralj Marko.